Earlier in this course, I've said that anything you can do in a Laravel project, you can do in a package as well. So using migrations and models in a package is no problem at all. In this video, I'll show you how to do that. First, let's create a models directory. And this reflects the fact that in a normal Laravel project, I also like to have a models directory where all of the models are being saved. We're going to add a model class to that. I'm going to call this one my model. Let's extend it from the Eloquent model. And you don't have to do this, but I default don't need mass assignment protection, so I'm going to put guarded to an empty array. To demonstrate something later in this video, I'm also going to add a very simple function, get uppercase name. It will return a string, and it will return the uppercase version of the name attribute of this model. Okay, next let's set up the migrations. I'm going to rename this file to something that reflects that we are going to create the my models table. Create my models table, like that. And you notice that this isn't a regular PHP file, but a stub file. And this is marked as a stub to handle a little edge case when you're using PHP Storm. Don't worry about it. Let's open it up and add the table name here, my models. Let's also add a name field here, so table string name, like that. Next up, in our service provider, we can register that migration by calling hasMigration, and we should give it the name of the migration here. So create my models table. And this call will make the migration file publishable. I'll demo that later in this video. Let's also create a factory for this model, so we can easily create models in our tests. So I'm going to rename this one to my model factory. Let's open it up. We're going to uncomment this. The model that we are going to use is my model. And it has an attribute name. So we are going to use faker to generate a fake name, like that. The name of the class should be my model factory. In our test case, we must also uncomment some things. Let's uncomment this piece of code. And this will make sure that whenever we call a factory on a model, that Laravel knows that the factory will be in this directory. Oh, and on my model, I should also probably use the hasFactory trait. So we have that static factory method on the model. I'll use that in a bit. Let's go back to test case. And let's also uncomment this, so that the migration is in fact performed before each and every test. And here I should use the real name of the migration, create models table PHP stub. In a previous video, I've already mentioned this line. This makes sure that we are going to use the testing database connection by default. The testing database connection is something that Laravel provides, and this one will use an in-memory SQLite database. And for most simple packages, this is good enough. In the next video, I'll explain why and how you could use a real MySQL database in your tests. Okay, I think everything is set up now to start using our model. Let's create a little test. I'm going to call this test my model test. We're using pest here, so I don't need all of this. And let's create a first test. It can create a model. Let's add a function. And now let's try to create a model. So my model is a new my model, and I'm going to create it using the factory. Let's call create on this. Maybe let's also import this. And let's assert that that model actually exists. Let's pass this my model. This is an assertion that will make sure that that model is really saved in the database. Let's run this test, and sure enough, it passed. Let's maybe also dump out my model so you can see all of the attributes. And you can see that inside the attributes, we used that dummy name that was generated by Faker. So our model and migration seem to be working perfectly. Now, this is a test that probably you wouldn't write in a real test suite of a package, as we're only testing Laravel functionality here. But let's quickly write a test for that little function that we added. It can return the uppercased value of a name. Let's give it a specific name, John. And now we expect that the uppercased version. Oh, and I don't get any auto-completion, so I'm going to add a little type in here. This returns my model. Get uppercase name. That equals John. Let's run the test. And sure enough, it passes. Okay, let's now see how package users can publish the migration and use the model provided by our package. Let's go to our README file. And in the installation part, you can see that we already mentioned the command that can be used to publish the migrations. It's again that vendor publish command, but instead of using a tag example config, we are going to use example migrations. And that tag is also being set up by that has migration call in our service provider. So it's basically the short package name, so the name of the package without the Laravel prefix, and then suffixed with migrations. Okay, let's use that in that project that we already set up. So here's our directory with migrations. Let's copy this command and paste it here. And when I refresh this directory, we see that our migrations was indeed copied over. And if we refresh this directory, then we see that the migration was indeed copied over. It was copied over from the package to the project. Now we can migrate the database. And now we can start to use this model. So let's try it. My model all. And it seems that it couldn't infer the full namespace, so I'm going to just copy it from here. So let's try doing this. And now you can see that there are no my model models. So let's create one. Maybe again with the name John. Like that, it was created. And if I now ask for all models, sure enough, we get our model back. So this proves that in our project, we can use the model that is provided by the package. For most cases, using an SQLite database is just fine. But if you use some database-specific features, it might be useful to use a real database. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can use a real database like MySQL in your package and in your tests.